Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for 5 Keys to Increasing Your B2B Qualified Sales Pipeline. This is Taylor Meekum, Leverage Point's Marketing Manager, and I am pleased to moderate our session today. I'd like to welcome all of you to another one of our monthly webinars on value-based strategy. Now, during the webinar, if you have any specific questions or comments, please feel free to enter them in the right-hand panel in the questions section. Later, we'll respond to as many of them as we can. Also, remember to complete our quick survey upon exiting today's webinar. If you do so, you will receive a copy of Jill Conrath's ebook, Irresistible Value Propositions, and be entered into a raffle for one free copy of Jill Conrath's book, Agile Selling. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Dick Orlando, Leverage Point's COO and President. Welcome, Dick.
Thank you, Taylor. This is always the most favorite part of my job, presenting to sales leaders, salespeople, marketing people. And every time I present, what I like to be able to do is provide some added value, obviously to the listeners, that you feel that you know a little bit more about how to fill the pipeline up. That's the topic of this meeting is. This session after the webinar that you did before. And I always try to get a new quote the day of the webinar, and this is one I found from the State of Sales Execution 2015. It's a report that just came out from Covidian. And I don't disagree with this, and I don't think any sales VP would disagree with this, but 60% of the buyers today are disengaging with sales teams because the sales reps didn't present value. And all of us have opinions as to why that's the case. And hopefully today I'll walk you through some of the challenges here of why this is happening, but more important, a really solid solution as how you can prevent this and increase revenue. This is a very high level at what an enterprise B2B sales process looks like. And everyone on the call I know is from a major enterprise or a major division at an enterprise. Your sales cycles are long, and also the deal sizes are big. They're in usually the 6 figures and sometimes 7 and even 8 figures. So the process is long, and it starts very simply by people putting a lot of millions of dollars into marketing automation systems to create qualified leads. In some cases, hopefully the customer calls in. And then that is passed to an organization, say an inside sales group, to follow up on the quality leads, or if the lead is hot enough, it goes right to the salesperson. And the outcome of that, hopefully, is creating more customer meetings. And customer meetings is your opportunity, either face-to-face or it is becoming more popular to do with an inside sales organization, to create the need for your solution to become of the customer's decision process. You can't win a deal unless you get into the competition or get into the mix. And it's very, very important that only these deals, these meetings, that they create qualified pipeline. And qualified pipeline sometimes is a process that reps follow. It's a methodology in the sales organization. Or in a lot of cases, it's beauty's in the eyes of the beholder. So the sales rep will put a deal into the qualified pipeline, and at that point, significant resources are usually extended on that opportunity. Well, the reality is that according to Sales Benchmark Institute, which is a very reputable source of sales information, 60% of the forecasted deals in the pipeline do nothing. It's a pretty scary statistic. And when I talk to sales VPs, I often ask them about this, and I'm getting a number between 50 and 75%. So this 60% looks pretty solid, which means that after a lot of work, after a lot of process, and a lot of resources, you lose to no decision or status quo. And it's important that we all understand this. Is it the sales rep's fault? I'm not sure. But how can you present, how can you reduce this 60%? Because right now, sales reps, at least in my experience, are going to this part of the sales cycle, which is the most critical, with a standard 35, 40, even 45-page PowerPoint presentation to talk about their company. And in today's day and age of the internet, where we have a much more educated buyer, especially in the B2B space, they wouldn't be talking to you unless they've already vetted out the company or your solution. It really is probably safe to say a technology of the past. So qualifying a deal at this point by ending a presentation with something like, thank you for your time, we enjoyed your presentation, we'll caucus after the meeting, and we'll let you know the next steps. That used to be a qualified opportunity. In today's world, it is not. And why is it? Well, there's a term that's become very popular, which is sales readiness. And for the marketing people on the call, how is your collateral or your tools helping the sales rep become ready for that sales call? Because very little of the sales rep's time, as you know, is spent in front of the customer. So when you get a 1 hour or an hour and a half meeting in front of key recommenders or decision makers, they really have to nail it, or as I call, win that sales call. And according to Forrester, this is a survey that a lot of us use. They did a study that said, ask the question, are vendor sales reps frequently prepared for your meetings? And if they are, in which ways, and if they're not, in which ways aren't they? And all the sales reps, and I'm sure it's because of the presentation, come across as being extremely knowledgeable of their company and their products, and their features and their benefits. But as far as this says, that's not why that decision maker took the meeting. These large B2B enterprise deals involve some pretty important people in the sales call, even in the early stages, because they're key recommenders. So how do you get to the next step? Well, one of the ways isn't leaving the meeting with the customer thinking, like Forrester is saying, almost 80% of the time, that rep did not understand my issues and where they can help. Or they don't understand, they don't relate to my role and responsibilities. All customers are polite, so they'll smile, they'll thank you, but they leave there, according to Forrester, over 80% of the time thinking that this was really a waste of time. So what can we do to help the salespeople? Well, the salespeople, when they have one of these meetings, they go through a lot of time and panic trying to set up the exact presentation for the customer. And there's a lot of content management systems out there that take in millions of pieces of content so you can access them. But it's really not that personalized. It's really not that focused. So the sales rep, this is a scary statistic according to CSO Insights, spends about 60% of their time hunting for the right sales content and resources to present to a major deal opportunity and qualify the customer using this content. This is a tough statistic to look at, but it's reality. So, what are 5 ways that we can help the salespeople, and more important, that the sales rep can help themselves? Well, first and foremost, when I talk to sales VPs, what they're hoping their sales rep does is, number 1, present the value proposition early in the sales cycle. Because again, 50 to 75% of those qualified deals end up in no decision. So you want more qualified opportunities there. Early in the sales cycle, and talk about the numbers. Talk about what ROI, what TCO am I bringing to the table, or similar customers like you are getting from my offering. It includes 3 to 4 value or business drivers, such as operating expenses, movement, decreasing. So I'm here to show you how we can decrease your operating expenses in a metric by 30% and quantify it, which would equal $15 million a year. Would you be interested in learning how customers similar to you are doing that? Or it could be a positive value drivers as well. And the first thought in the customer's mind is, what assumptions did you make? And when you put up a value proposition in the customer's industry with customers' terms, B2B companies know what these key drivers are, and they can pick 3 of them or 4 of them, and they can make an assumption. For example, in a hospital, if you're calling on hospitals, it could be based on a number of beds in that hospital. So you could say this is based on a hospital with 1,000 beds. And after you put in the information, graphics appear. pie charts or bar charts or waterfalls that show the customer the impact of these assumptions and value drivers on their business. And relevant content, and that instead of that sales rep having to look through hundreds of pieces of content, that the sales rep can take a case study or a video or a research study or an award the customer gets and show it instantly, which matches that industry. The third piece is I call it a calculator feature, and this is really important. You want your sales rep to get into a collaborative conversation with the customer early on in the sales call and not listen to 30, 40 slides with few comments and end the meeting. And this is what I call a moment of truth in a call. If a customer says, we don't have 1,000 beds in our hospital, we have 3,000. And the sales rep could say, okay, let's change that 2,000 to 3,000 and see what it does to your ROI and TCO. And that's when the magic starts happening. 2, do your reps a favor. Create a repository and start with 2 to 3, what we call master value propositions. These are value propositions that are written specifically and developed specifically for that industry that your sales rep is calling on, whether it be financial services, manufacturing, high tech, healthcare, but it's a value proposition intended to have a collaborative business conversation at the meeting. And these products should be products that are important to you, and products that over the next 12 to 24 months that will yield the revenue and the margins that you would like or you need, and also have competitive differentiation. 3, most important, you saw the picture of that befuddled sales rep. Make it very easy. And I say, if a sales rep cannot find a master value proposition in less than 15 seconds, then the tool that you're using is not right. Because in a lot of cases, sales reps do not have the time to do the research they need when a customer calls and wants a presentation, either online or in person. So you have to be able to provide a tool in the cloud that has 7 by 24 by 365 access for the sales reps worldwide. 4, and this is really important, test it. Before you roll it out to thousands of salespeople or hundreds of salespeople, take that small group of reps with these 2 to 3 products and show them how easy it is to access the value proposition. And have the reps, usually these reps are supported by some form of pre-sales. And last is, as a result of the test, you should get 1 or 2 or 3 success stories, and it's really important you evangelize it to the sales reps. You know, if you want the sales reps to adopt the tool, tell them they can't have it, right? Or tell them that somebody else is using it that had some success. And success in a 12 to 18 to 24-month sales cycle is a whole bunch of different reasons. Able to get in accounts we haven't been able to get into before because the competition has it, or getting to the next meeting with the decision maker faster with the tool than without the tool. These are major success stories that actually help shorten the sales cycle and evangelize that and the outcomes of that. And our best customers, they actually put these reps and pre-sales people on a call, on a webcast, and the adoption then just comes rolling in and it scales tremendously. Let me just walk through one quick conservative example of what this can do. Now, you've heard the term the middle of the sales force. Well, if you take an enterprise sales force and you look at it this way, where the middle, those are really the people who are doing a bulk of the transactions and a bulk of the demos and a bulk of the calls. The reps on the right, they get all the support that they need, and they have very large ticket item deals, usually $1 million up to 10, 20, $100 million. And the new accounts way on the left are usually entry-level sales reps who are just learning the business. But if you take a typical example maybe of 200 sales reps, and the average deal with the middle of the sales reps is $100,000, that's 160 reps. Now think about how many, if you could get additional qualified value opportunities in the pipeline using value propositions, what that would mean to a sales VP. Sales VPs say to me, Dick, I have a good sales process. My challenge is getting more really qualified opportunities into that sales process. So if you just said, if you get one qualified sales opportunity per rep, that would have an opportunity of $16 million on the top line. Now, in reality is your top reps will end up doing 4, 5, 6 opportunities. So if you get a close rate of 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10 of those opportunities, the opportunity in the top line is between $3.2 million and $4.8 million. I happen to think these are very conservative numbers, and you certainly should get higher. But this is the type of impact that a value proposition can have on your business when you present it early in the sales cycle and have more qualified, really truly qualified opportunities. What I'm going to do now is have Brian, of major accounts, who is a sales rep that presents a lot to sales VPs, presents this opportunity, and show you just a typical example of how a sales rep would use the tool. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Dick. So, as Dick mentioned, I'll be showing a fictitious example. So I'm a salesperson, and in the case that we're talking about, I'm working for a company called Astria Solutions, and it's actually a software company. And so I'm a salesperson. I have a meeting that's coming up, maybe tomorrow or maybe sometime later in the week, and I'm preparing for that meeting and preparing to head in. And so this is the Leverage Point website that you can see here on the screen, hopefully. And as a salesperson, I can quickly log in, and I'm sent to what we call the sales side of our application, which is a series of, as Dick referred to, master value propositions that have been published by marketing. And they're made available to me to choose and use both to prepare for my meeting coming up and actually in the meeting itself. So these are our value propositions that I'm able to quickly determine based on criteria, whether it's which product I'm focused on, whether it's which industry that I'm headed into, or maybe region of the world. And I can quickly scroll down from, I believe it was almost 80 value propositions, down to just a handful by choosing the criteria and then opening up the value proposition. And so as you can see here, I logged into our website. This is an online value proposition. I'm able to use this at the customer site as well via laptop or tablet. So as we see here, this is actually trading compliance software. And so I'll do some work preparing for my meeting, and maybe I have a meeting coming up with a company called ABC Financial. I should probably spell it right. There we go. And I can choose to do some preparation of this value proposition before, but maybe I'll actually wait and start to have the conversation when I'm in front of the client. And typically, in many cases these days, clients are expecting to have a salesperson come in and kind of roll into a very large PowerPoint presentation. But we'll take a slightly different tack today. And what we're going to do is basically ask permission or talk to the prospect about sharing a simple case study with them about the value that we've provided companies just like theirs. And it should only take us a few minutes, and that's what we're going to show today. So as we can see here, there's sort of some main messages at the top of the screen. Very simply, based on some analysis that we've done prior to our meeting, what the company is doing today in terms of their manual trading compliance efforts, we think we can automate with software. And in fact, doing that, we can save them over $230,000 a year. Now, that's a significant dollar amount, and in many cases, these contracts may go over 5 years. And so looking at a 5-year span, that's almost $1.2 million in savings back to the client if they choose our software. So what we want to start doing is confirming with them some of the assumptions that we've made. But the first thing we might do is confirm, is that dollar amount something that is going to be important to them? Really what we're trying to do is qualify the opportunity. is that dollar savings something that they'd be willing to bring forward? And hopefully it is, because it's a significant amount of money. But it's important to qualify the opportunity and then begin to talk through some of the assumptions that we've made. And we can see those assumptions in the white boxes underneath here. So before we do, we can see what we've estimated as essentially the cost of the manual processes that the company is incurring today. And I'll switch this back to an annual basis. So we're estimating that, in this case, ABC Financial is spending almost $500,000 a year because they haven't automated these processes. And this is based on some criteria that we talked about, the number of employees, and maybe they actually correct me and tell me there's 2,500 employees at the company today. And maybe they actually correct me on the number of bond trades per year as well, and that's close to 100. So I can begin making changes to the information, and those changes are updated automatically as I do that. And you can see that the changes are actually highlighted, and we'll see in a moment how those changes ripple through the rest of the value proposition. But as I'm sure you're all looking at, and as most people do, is this very large red bar, which is essentially the money that we think we can save them on an annual basis. And assuming that they're interested at this point, that's the area that they're going to be focused on as well. So let's drill into that. And we do that by showing the information in a slightly different way. So we have different capabilities in terms of different charts that we can use. In this case, the chart essentially breaks down that over $500,000 cost at this point into 3 key areas. And we can read them right here. More efficient compliance, employee retention, and risk reduction. And we can actually see how the costs are split out there. So what we've done is sort of taken a step down and drilled in a little bit on the detail, but we'll probably want to go further. They'll want to understand, well, how did you come up with these numbers? And if you notice, these 3 areas match the 3 buttons underneath the assumptions. And what we're able to do is start to step through and have conversations about the specific business drivers and really our thought process and how we came up with these numbers. So for example, in our creating or automating their compliance efforts, we think we can save them money. In this case, it's almost $300,000 a year. And we'll do that by reducing their compliance cost. Now, there's details in terms of how we came up with this information that we can choose to go into if we want to. Or we have the ability to point the customer or the prospect to various either case studies, which will talk through how we came up with the logic and maybe what we've done with another client, or other videos and research, which we'll see in a moment. So we can see here the chunk of value that we're talking about in terms of more efficient compliance. We can go to the next one, which talks about improving employee retention. And so today we have estimated that with the size of their company and the type of industry they're in, they're having approximately a 10% voluntary turnover on an annual basis. And again, we think we can improve that by 5% by essentially moving towards software versus their manual processes that they're using today. Again, if we get feedback that, well, their turnover is actually 8%, then we can make those changes and that will be updated automatically as well. And then finally, risk reduction. We've taken a stab at what we think their risk, the cost of a compliance event is today, and we have some evidence about what we've done with other clients in the past. And we have evidence potentially in a video that we can run. Maybe it's a 60-second video that the prospect can listen to. Or maybe we have a white paper which talks through the logic of how we came up with our numbers in terms of what the cost of a risk event would be, and maybe there's some information about how we improve that or how we automate that. So we have the ability to walk through those with the prospect live, or we can certainly send those afterwards to back up some of the information that we shared. And so we the kind of the three key business drivers, and hopefully we've gotten some agreement or maybe some disagreement, but we've updated our numbers based on that. And there's other ways that we could actually show the information. So if there's different ways we want to talk through the case, we can set up the charts to show up in different order to help our conversation. And in fact, this chart here talks about the incremental investment, which would be $288,000 per year for our software. But if they did that, they would save $223,000 a year in addition to that investment for the company. So I'll go back to the first chart here. So two more things that I'll show you before we wrap up. One is once I've kind of come to some agreement with the prospect, we can save our value proposition and make it specific to the customer. And once we hit OK, we save that back to the main set of value propositions, but only the salesperson can choose to have access to that, so they can save that for themselves. The other option here is to export a PowerPoint presentation. And so if we choose to, we can export a standard presentation that contains all of the new information and the new data that we talk through with the prospect. And it contains charts and similar information to what we saw here with the online value proposition. So with that, I'll wrap this up. But I think our goal here is sort of twofold. The first is really to qualify the deal and to make sure that the person that we're talking to and the opportunity is important to them. But second, we really want to show them the value of the opportunity and show them the significance of it so that we stay on their radar and we can move the opportunity forward. We can get access to a higher level of the organization and hopefully eventually, end up closing the deal. So one of the questions that we sometimes get is, how do we get started with something like this within our organization? And the way we typically engage with clients is through what we call a proof of concept. And the way that works, we try to keep it very simple, is we work with the prospect at this point to develop one or more value propositions for some of their key products. And we allow them to test the value propositions over a period of, say, a couple of months. And they're able to see the value proposition and then get feedback from the sales force about how it works and get some real information before signing up to be a Leverage Point client. And we've had a lot of success with this process, and we're happy to talk with you about it. So with this, I'll pass this over to Taylor for a Q&A.
Thanks, Brian. We've had a few questions come in during the webinar, and there is still time to enter your question into the panel on your screen. While you're entering, a reminder to complete the 10-second survey while exiting today's webinar to receive a copy of Irresistible Value Propositions and be entered to win a copy of Agile Selling. Now let's begin with the question and answer segment of our webinar. To begin, I'll answer the most popular question myself. Yes, the webinar is recorded, and the slides and recording will be sent to you by the end of the week, along with the ebook, Irresistible Value Propositions, if you complete the exit survey. So the first question for Brian: how do companies get started when they don't have the necessary data to create the value propositions, and how long does it typically take?
Yeah, so this is a question that we get a lot, and there's really two answers to this question. The first is, in many cases, the data exists in your organization today, but it really hasn't been gathered, and the questions haven't been asked. So the opportunity to develop a value proposition really prompts, in many cases, product management to have those conversations with field salespeople and with other people in the organization and begin to gather the data. And so the first answer I'd say is, in many cases, the data does exist. It just really hasn't been searched for yet. But the other answer is that data doesn't have to be perfect. the value proposition does not have to be 100% correct for you to begin sharing it with prospective customers. If it's something where you take an estimate and you think it's close, then that's good enough to begin having a conversation with the prospect. And they can tell you how close or how far off you are. To wait for perfect data will really be to allow, in many cases, your competition to come in and start this value discussion and value process before you or instead of you, and you're really left out in the cold in many cases.
Great, thanks. Next question. We have lots of products. Which one would be best to focus on or focus on first?
So the simplest answer there is probably focus on the products that are most important to your organization, say over the next 12 to 18 months. So these are the products that are going to drive today, are going to drive the revenue and drive the margins. And typically they're the ones that are the most differentiated. And those are the ones that can actually benefit the most by helping salespeople close more of that business, and certainly helping salespeople close business at higher rates or lower discounts on average.
Okay. And the next question. What other benefits do your customers see from the use of value propositions in addition to more qualified deals?
So we alluded to, or I think I just alluded to a couple of them, but I'll maybe restate it with this question. The first, I think, would be competitive positioning. So being the first to talk value within an account that is looking for a solution and maybe talking to your competitors, it enables you to differentiate yourself, because in many cases they won't be doing it at all. But it also helps you set the stage by educating the prospect about the key business drivers and why your solution is actually better than the competitive solution. And it gives them the knowledge to then go back to your competitor and ask some very specific and direct questions about what they can do in those areas and how they can drive business value, economic value. The other area I think I alluded to was around average discounting. So what we are seeing within our clients is that this type of tool is giving salespeople much more confidence during the sales cycle when they're able to point back consistently to the fact that they're saving their client $1 million or they're helping their client generate millions of dollars in additional revenue. It gives them the confidence to hold the line on the typical discounting discussions. So while it's not going to remove discounting as a discussion or an issue, over time it can certainly impact the average discount across multiple deals.
Great, thank you. Next question. Who in the organization is typically responsible for creating value propositions?
So typically at our clients today, we work with product management, product marketing, in some cases field marketing, to develop the value propositions and make those available to the salespeople.
Okay. And who else in the organization uses value propositions?
So I guess two areas there. What we're seeing is that the value propositions here are used both internally, so they're used by product marketing, product management when they're communicating value to the sales force, when they're communicating value in many cases to their executives. And certainly then it's also used, as we've kind of shown here, when they're dealing directly with clients. So this could be technical people, this could be pre-sales people, and certainly salespeople, account managers as well. So we do get lots of different people in the organization using it, in some cases both internally and externally.
Great, thank you, Brian. That looks like that's all the questions we have for today. So thank you for taking the time to join us. And if any further questions come up, please feel free to reach out to Dick or Brian on the emails provided on the screen. And just a reminder, don't miss Leverage Point's next Value Strategies webinar, Utilizing Customer Loyalty Data to Enhance Value Pricing with Joanne Smith, President of Price to Profits Consulting and author of the Value Pricing and Profit Playbook. In the survey, there'll be an option to register for this webinar. Well, that's it from us for today. Thank you for taking the time to join us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Take care.